Peace and love. Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of a series of videos where I'm dealing with afterlife beliefs and afterlife traditions and rituals. And in part 2 of this series, we're going to be dealing with a lot of various afterlife beliefs from different cultures, starting with ancient Egypt. But before I do that, let me just thank all of you for your generous support. So shout out to you all. And shout out to my patrons. So with that being said, we're just going to get right into it. So what did ancient Egyptians believe? Ancient Egyptians believed that the person was comprised of 3 essential elements. The first element is the body. The body is the actual physical body. It is unique to each person. The body changes as the person gets older, and death is considered to be the last change. The second element is Ba. Like the body, Ba is unique to each person. In modern terms, Ba can be thought of as one's personality or character, a composite of all the non-physical things that make the person different from all other people. You, the reader's Ba, would include your memories, your preferences, the manner in which you express your emotions, the stuff you know, your intelligence, and etc. The third element is Ka. Ka is the life force. Unlike Ba, Ka does not represent the individual. It is a universal force, something shared by all living people. In the beginning, the Creator made Ka, and being in possession or not in possession of Ka is the difference between being alive and being dead. So that pretty much sums up the foundation of ancient Egyptian afterlife beliefs. And as you can see, when you explore these beliefs, you will see that every human being has a unique essence that makes them them. And that goes back to what I say when I say that we are all expressions of the one. So every human is unique, but what makes us all the same is we are still all different forms of that one creator that started everything in the beginning. So Ka represents that primordial source. And notice in Egyptian beliefs, in the beginning, the Creator made Ka, and being in possession or not in possession of Ka is the difference between being alive and being dead. You really think about that concept, Ka being this source that cannot cease to exist, the source of all. There's really no way you can ever be not in possession of Ka, because if you have a heartbeat, the energy that's giving you life right now comes from that primordial source. Everything is an expression of the all. So to say that if you don't have Ka, you are dead is not the concept of death that many of you are thinking. The body dies, but Ka always remains. And the expression that we call the body would always find itself re-embodied, because that expression is just an expression of the Creator. And that expression is a continuum, and you're on a journey of perfection. And man has always been on a journey of perfection, and he has always asked questions. And what has kept man on this quest is because us being expressions of that primordial source, we are individual driplets from the primordial ocean, and that water, no matter where it goes, will always be water. So when you think of water, it's the beginning of everything. It's the life-giving source. It's very sacred. It's a very sacred element. When you start to study how water moves and how it functions and how it transitions solid, liquid, gas, it tells a story of the Ka, of the soul, of the all, because no matter where it rains on the earth, all water finds its way back to the source of the ocean at some point in its journey. And then it finds its way back into the atmosphere as a little driplet, journeying to that source again and again and again. This is what we call existence. It's a beautiful story of transitioning. But they have shaped the way we see death, and that's one of the main reasons I'm making these videos, is to undo some of the spookism and make us back comfortable with what we are. So there are many variations of the ancient Egyptian afterlife belief, the one I'm giving you now, is the most general, although it's not the oldest, because when we say ancient Egypt, we're still not talking about ancient Kemet or ancient Kushite afterlife beliefs. Why am I giving you ancient Egyptian afterlife beliefs? Because these are the beliefs that lie at the core of the modern conscious communities today. And just to be clear, what I'm reading to you from this ancient Egyptian afterlife beliefs is very accurate. So far, what we've read about the Ka and the Ba is very accurate. So I just wanted to point that out. So I'm just giving you information here. And I'm pretty sure if we go back into ancient times and read some afterlife beliefs, they would line up, because there's not many different scenarios that the human mind can fathom about the afterlife. It's a very mysterious subject, a very personal subject, and it's crazy that it's not a popular public conversation, as I mentioned previously. So there's not many variations or room to come up with scenarios and afterlife scenarios based upon when you start to think of what can happen to the soul. There's very limited options, and we understand that everyone has a heaven, everyone have a hell, because the human mind can only perceive the duat. So what I want to point out to you about the duality is that the duality creates the Trinity, and most of the time we miss the Trinity, which is the reality. We live in the now. So when we look at heaven and hell concepts, we got to understand that these are transitioning realms that were turned into realms like heaven and hell for control purposes. There are no streets of gold, and there are no lakes of fires that are floating in darkness out there anywhere. When you read these ancient afterlife beliefs like I'm doing now, you can see that everyone is saying the same thing, that the soul transitions. But where does it go? Now, that's when the reincarnation conversations come into play. But what constitutes a lot of these ancient afterlife beliefs is reincarnation. So at the end of this journey in all afterlife beliefs is always a new beginning. It's always a new saga, because you're an expression that's constantly trying to perfect itself and become back unified to the source. You're not separate from the source. Your perception creates the illusion of separateness. So every moment you're alive, when you're feeding your mind and feeding your soul with knowledge, it's a form of becoming back one through understanding, becoming back one with that source. So you will notice that there are very spiritual people walking this planet who can do some very, I would say, magical things and spiritual things based upon who they are and a level of awareness in their incarnation at this time. So all of us will eventually cross the same paths and end up at the same great place. Some will get there faster than others. Just like when raindrops fall, some raindrops hit the ground before others, but they all end up in the same place. So with that being said, we're going to move on. And some of these ancient Egyptian beliefs, when the body dies, both Ba and Ka are released through the mouth and are thereby separated from the body and depart for the underworld. However, unless things go poorly, the separation is not permanent, and eventually Ba, Ka, and the body are reunited in the underworld and resurrect in the form of Ak. Now, you can do your research further on all of this, but Ox, those who successfully make the transition into the underworld of eternal life with the gods. The underworld, as the word suggests, is located underground, where life is conducted in the same way life is conducted above ground, with the exception that there is no suffering, no disease, no poverty, and importantly, no death. Life is permanent, endless, eternal in this part of the underworld. Those who fail to make the transition suffer the fate of becoming re-dead with no hope of resurrection. So basically, you will see here in ancient Egypt, not ancient Kemet, that at this point when we enter the underworld concepts, it's a very interesting story what we just read here. Now, in my analysis of what we read, when we say that unless things go poorly, the separation is not permanent, and eventually Ba, Ka, and the body are reunited in the underworld and resurrected, we see that this underworld has a heavenly abode located in it, A lot of people would hear the word underworld and think about, a place of punishment, of something where souls are being punished. But here we see it's a heavenly abode where there is no suffering, no disease. Now, what is the underworld? What is this passage telling us? Basically, in this transitioning story, when it say those who fail to make the transition suffer the fate of becoming re-dead with no hope of resurrection, because it goes on to say that there are bumps in the road to resurrection in this particular ancient Egyptian underworld story. So, for instance, a prerequisite for safe landing in the underworld of the gods is good conduct in this world prior to death. So, let me expound on all of that. Since we are all one organism and one human organism, whether we like to see it that way or not, all of the human beings on this planet impact the planet and each other daily, whether we like to admit it or not. We are one being and we all expressions of one primordial source. So to sum all of this up, what happens in my humble opinion, in my analysis, going along with what we just read, what Brother Sanchez believes is that this whole transitioning story describes, again, the raindrop analysis that I made earlier. All of us are on a journey. So some of us are going to experience bumps in the road to resurrection. But however, resurrection is a prerequisite. It's something that everyone does. You will resurrect and resurrect and resurrect and resurrect. That is the continuum. That is what makes us eternal. Even when you look at the word resurrection, it actually starts with the first two letters, R-E, which is re. And when you put re in front of anything, it's repetitive. So we can't escape repetition. That is infinity, this story of everlasting transitioning. So we are beautiful snowflakes in a sense. If you understand the concept of how snowflakes are formed and what's going on with that science, it'll break down the whole afterlife journey of the soul. So there are some snowflakes that are going to take forever to reunite back down here to the ground, to Mother Earth. But there are some that's going to fall just fine. But they're all snowflakes and they're all headed to the same destination. And understand that this is one creation made up of all of us living organisms. A lot of these afterlife beliefs were corrupted, especially during the final dynasties of ancient Egypt and on up in today. A lot of the afterlife stories and underworld stories turned into hell to induce fear into the masses for control purposes. So I'm just giving you back the ancient truth here, and we're going to move on. So as you can see in the text caption in front of you, how the afterlife mummification process was carried out. The living had a lot to do with the journey of the dead, and a lot of these ancient Egyptian practices, which lasted for about 2,500 years before they were abandoned. In these rites of passage, first Ba is summoned to the hall of truth, where several gods have gathered. Osiris, the god of the underworld, would likely be among them. The heart of the deceased is then placed on one end of the scale and a feather on the other end. In the company of various gods, Ba, who represents the essence of the former person, is required to recite the following lines. Only 3 of several are listed here. I have not done falsehood against man. I have done no evil. I have not impoverished my associates. The scale remains in perfect balance if Ba's affirmation of the lines is truthful, and a perfectly balanced scale is a prerequisite for the gods to allow Ba to direct Ka to the body they formerly occupied and thereby enter into the state of Ak. But if falsehoods are told, the heart becomes heavy and scale becomes imbalanced and resurrection is denied. So in this story, we can see that resurrection is the objective. And again, it all ties into the figure 8, which is the symbol of eternity. We cannot cease to exist, and there's no place you can go outside of existence, which is here on the earth plane. This is where existence takes place. This is the stage. For some reason, we want to go to other worlds that we create in our mind that we can't prove to exist. But for some reason, we just can't seem to get it together and start taking care of this world that we live in, because all of these foolish beliefs beliefs got us looking for worlds outside of this one, so our kids are left to inherit a less likable earth as a result of our foolish beliefs. We don't like to deal with reality. So the ancients dealt with reality. They dealt with resurrection, reincarnation. Understand that these two words both have something in common, and that they both have the RE root. RE is re, dealing with repetition, resurrection, reincarnation, revival, renewal. That's what makes us infinite. And we got to start re-perceiving our reality. So we got to get a grip on reality, guys. So now we're going to deal with some ancient Greece afterlife beliefs. And I'm going to blow you guys away with some of these ancient Greece beliefs. They're not too different from a lot of the ancient Egyptian ones previously, because we got to understand that there is a relation between Greece and Egyptian during a lot of those blending periods when the Greeks had came over. But I won't get into that in this video. We all should be aware of that. To stay on subject, this is some very interesting stuff we're about to get into with ancient Greece afterlife beliefs. So, although traces of ancient Egyptian religion are apparent in some modern day beliefs, such as the final judgment of the soul, Western ideas were more influenced by ancient Greek thinking than by the lore of ancient Egyptians. We begin with the Greek poet Homer, author of the Iliad and the Odyssey in the 8th century BCE. Some afterlife beliefs presumably coming to that time period in Greece can be extracted from these epic stories. The Greek word associated with the soul was psyche, a word linked with the word psychein, meaning to blow or breathe. Psyche is breathed into the body at birth and breathed out at death. But note that psyche that is breathed out at death is not to be confused with ba or ka that depart from the mouth and have a shot at resurrection in Egyptian mythology. The Greek psyche, or the Greek soul of Homer's era, travels directly to Hades, where it exists as a shade. So if you look at the word shade and shadow can be used interchangeably. The word shade and shadow represent the same concept. And in this Greek story of the afterlife, everyone's soul or psyche, as they call it in ancient Greece, travels to Hades, where it exists as a shade. And if you look at the word shade, if you subtract the S off of shade, you will be left with the word Hades or Haiti, because the word shade and the word Hades are related. Basically, the shade is the shadow that go to Shade or Hades. Now, in a lot of my videos, I go into the cosmic journey and how the soul transitions, which is very simple. I recommend you guys explore the channel. Right now, I'm giving you some ancient afterlife beliefs in time periods that were corrupted. So understand that the ancient Greece here were very corrupted, and they had a society that was quite evil indeed, based upon all of these corrupted beliefs. So like I mentioned in the previous videos, beliefs can be very dangerous. What a society believes manifests itself in that society's reality. So you can see that ancient Greece had a very wicked society for many years. There was not many righteous points in Greece history. And you can see that their beliefs were quite dull and shady, as we are reading here. So in these ancient Greece afterlife beliefs, Hades was the common dumping ground for the righteous, the wicked, the kind-hearted, and the scoundrel. No matter how good you were or how bad you were, during this time in ancient Greece, in their afterlife beliefs, everyone went to Hades. So no matter what kind of person you was, good or bad, you all ended up in Hades in Greece society. When I tell you that, you probably say that's kind of dumb, that's foolish, why would you have that kind of belief? But when you think about it, it's the exact same belief we have today. When you look at one of the most dominant religions, which is Christianity, it teaches that no matter what kind of person you are, for example, if you're in the church, you can still do wrong. But if you ask for forgiveness, if you accept Christ as your Lord and Savior, you will be forgiven and you will go to the same heaven that righteous people who done no wrong at all You will be in that same heaven with rehabilitated murderers and kidnappers. And now, don't get me wrong, everyone deserves a second chance. But what we see as a result of these kind of beliefs is a world that's not balanced, where wickedness dominates, because these beliefs are dangerous. They don't have balance. They don't teach the true law of nature. In nature, there is forgiveness, but there's always correction. There's always a lesson with every mistake. So when you go to pick a rose, even though the rose is beautiful, the thorn will stick your hand. You will learn a lesson that there's balance in all things. So what am I saying here is that water is very good. Water is the life-giving substance, but you still can drown from too much water. There's always balance. So what I mean here is that with these dangerous beliefs, you teach a person that no matter what they do before they die, if they accept Jesus, they're okay. Then most human beings are going to live it up. And then when they grow old, they're going to join the church. And that's exactly what we see in the society. We see a bunch of people who live the way they want to live when they're young, and they grow old and then join the church. Now, there's a lot of people that grow up in the church and they're church kids. But my basic point here is that the concept of these world religions creates the world we see today, where wickedness prevail, because the true law of nature is balance, and that law is karma, which teaches what goes around comes around. So humans forgive, but nature teaches. Humans forgive, but nature teaches. If you were in the jungle and a viper bit you, it don't matter if you meditate every day, okay? The poison from that snake, which is from nature and is a beautiful animal, is going to kill you. Nature teaches a lesson. And understand that a lot of our early ancestors carved the way for most of the knowledge that we have today, because they learned by firsthand experience with nature. So our ancestors were those conquerors in the jungle. They were the Tarzan movies that you go to watch in the theaters and spend all your money to see. Our ancestors had a one-on-one, face-to-face connection with nature, where they were experiencing the ups and downs of the journey of being a human and trying to understand existence and become back one with the all. Because the all is a scientist. The all is the supreme scientist, the source. And we are all expressions of that all in the flesh, experiencing its own creation as the master scientist. And it's experiencing this creation through us all in different ways and different personalities and different manifestations. So I get deep into that in a lot of videos. Again, explore the channel. But our beliefs are very important. In particular, the belief that deals with what one thinks is going to happen to their soul is very important, because you plan your life accordingly. In a lot of these religions, you see that they tell you their deities can show up at any given time and shut everything down. So you have a world where a lot of humans don't really plan for the future like the ancestors did, who were connected with nature and agriculture. They had to plan for the future in order to plant crops correctly. Today we go to supermarkets, we're disconnected from nature. So what happens is we're disconnected from planning for the future, and you create this YOLO mindset where I can die any minute, Jesus can come back at any minute, so why plan? Live it up. And hopefully I can grow old, and before I grow old, I'll just accept my way into the church, pay my tithes, and everything will be okay, even if I raped 100 women and killed 10,000 newborn babies. If Jesus said my heart is clean and a pastor say it's clean, it's clean. So this doesn't produce a reality that creates good people. It promises all of these bad people that they're going to somehow be perfected, when really the whole idea of these doctrines is to create a world of chaos. And what you will notice is the people have more of a connection to imaginary gods than they have with themselves. So like I was telling you, all of these ancient afterlife stories that our ancient ancestors created to produce better humans and to create a world where we became one with nature and one with the source, they were corrupted to create the world you see today. and they were used for control purposes. So you can see how all of this started here in these ancient Greece beliefs that I'm reading to you. In a lot of ancient Greece afterlife beliefs, the people that went to the ancient Greece good life, or the good part of this Hades. So if you're looking at the caption in front of you, it just describes the Isles of Bless. Please read over it, because in this ancient Greece beliefs, it reveals what I'm trying to convey to you here, that they corrupted a lot of the ancient beliefs for control purposes. So you would notice in this Isles of Bless that the good part of the Greece afterlife, the part where I guess you worked in a shadow and where you actually had some decent form of an afterlife, they taught that the good life was only available to the heroes who were killed in combat, and particularly in combat in the wars at Thebes and Troy. So you can see how they even tied in military propaganda into some of their ancient afterlife beliefs. This is sick, people. People live their whole lives and they're taught this since a child, so it becomes their reality. They believe in these afterlives. They believe in these places where their soul is going to exist in the afterlife. We can't prove it. And at the root of all of this deception is an agenda to get you to operate a certain way your entire life, by saying this will happen to you or that will happen to you when you die. And if you accept the belief, you will be ruled your entire life. And that is kind of a hell in itself. That really is what hell is, if you ask me. So you will see here in ancient Greece, they taught that if you were killed in war, if you went to combat and served in the military, you get to go to heaven. But so instead of actually dying in the fields of battle and ending up as shadows in Hades, these heroes earned immortality by being transported body and soul. Although a distinction between the two had not yet been made, they were transported body and soul again to the Isle of Bless, this heavenly abode for these soldiers. And you can see this same concept in Norse cosmology. I have a video on Norse cosmology where I go into their afterlife beliefs as well as their cosmology. And you can see where there was a time period where everyone was using religion as a form of propaganda and corrupting ancient science to produce human cattle. So we can see some of these same practices in a lot of the corrupted forms of Islam that they're using in the jihadist groups and everything, that teach you if you kill yourself as a suicide bomber and all of that, you get 20 wives and 20 American slaves and all of that crap. So you can see how the same thing is still happening today, and we still sleep. We need to wake up. They still governing us based on these foolish beliefs. They're still got us think we're fighting for righteous causes based upon the beliefs they teach us at birth. They're ruling our whole lives with this deception. So we can see that these ancient afterlife beliefs were corrupted because they were not a bad recruiting tool for ancient armed services. So as you read on and do more research on ancient Greece afterlife beliefs, you will find out that there was not much explicit soul talk by Greek poets and philosophers until Plato dealt with the topic in the 5th century BCE. Pythagoras had set the stage for Plato the century before by beginning the process of loosening the soul from the grips of the body. They say that this happened, but I would recommend doing further research on that yourself. But what I will say is this: Plato is a deceiver who was being used to serve the elite's agenda during his time. So I wouldn't take anything coming from those sources as 100% truth. If there's any truth in it at all, feel free to do more research on your own. So this guy by the name of Ever, the mathematician, has an interesting philosophy about the afterlife, in which I will share with you now. Ever, the mathematician, made a distinction between physical objects, the material stuff in the world, including one's body, and non-physical substances. All material things have mathematical properties and abide by certain laws, one of which is no material object can move on its own accord. For instance, a chair cannot turn itself around. If you want a chair to face in a different direction, you as an external force must do the work. So when you think about that concept, before I move on, I just want to talk about it a minute. That's interesting because one may say now Well, what moves the human body? Because we just read that all material things have mathematical properties and abide by certain laws, which is no material object can move on its own accord. So what's making your heart move? What's making your heart beat? What allows you the ability to move around and function? The soul, the essence, the life force within the body, similar to a toy robot, which would be lifeless until you put the Energizer battery inside of it and give it life. And then the little robot comes to life. Man doesn't create anything original. We are those expressions of the creator. The creator divided itself because the creator is divine. So when you look at the word divide, you can see that division is an act of divinity. The creator divided itself into what we call humans. And we're many expressions of that source, and we create more humans, and they are expressions that will begin to perceive reality based on a certain genetic code that their parents perceived it through. So we are all works in progress, and we are beautiful beings. So another law governing the material world is two objects cannot occupy the same physical space at the same time. And we know that one is true. I don't really have to expound much on that one. If you don't believe that one is true, then try to put two chairs in exactly the same physical location and you will immediately experience the problem. Now, with both of these laws mentioned, I want to point out something very important as it pertains to the human soul, or in ancient Greece, the human psyche. Neither of these laws that I just mentioned to you that governs physicality or the material world, neither of these laws apply to the soul or the psyche. Psyches are self-moving. They do not require external assistance to move about. You want to look in a different direction, do it. Your soul will give you a hand. And from a certain perspective, two psyches can be thought of as being able to occupy the same space at the same time. For instance, when you read someone's mind, it might be said that two minds temporarily share the same space. So this is very deep stuff, guys. When we dive into a lot of these ancient afterlife beliefs, we can see a lot of ancient truth still there. And that's what I like to point out to you guys. Just like we read in the ancient Egyptian belief previously, we see that there is a lot of truth at the foundation. But then when we get into the underworld, those stories became corrupted. Those are the final transitioning phase of the body. And these are some of the main questions humans ask when they're born and throughout their life. So these are the most important ones the elite feel to occupy. Everyone want to know what happens, when you shut your eyes for the final time. The elite know that, so they use this number one inner dwelling natural question that all of humanity have, because it's in us to be on that quest. We're many creators. They use that against us by intercepting the ancient afterlife stories and the underworld stories. So they give you truth, but they attach an agenda or a lie along with that truth. So what you have is a bunch of confusion and order out of chaos. Because when you read the Bible and you read the story of Genesis, the story is true, but you have to know how to interpret it. When you read that creation story of how everything started from darkness and then the waters above, it teaches you the ancient truth, but you have been miseducated on how to interpret it. If someone would have given you that book and let you read it innocently without telling you, and let you shape your own perception and everything based on it without giving you a pre-calculated bias with these concepts, your soul would figure out the truth for itself. But for deception to be achieved, these beliefs have to be corrupted and fear have to be induced. They have to put an end to the journey of the soul. So they create places like hell. So it creates a human that's lifeless. I mean, what's to look forward to? It's all over when I die. That's kind of a depressing feeling. And it creates a world that's very gloomy. Something you guys really need to keep in mind is that a lot of these Greek philosophers they give us, such as Plato, were forged into history, and there are no literal accounts of these people or their lineage. So in my belief, I don't believe Plato existed. Nobody really knows what Pythagoras actually thought, and whether or not he even existed is a matter of some debate. So people who literally exist, we don't really have to debate their existence. Their descendants and their family members will attest to them. So a lot of people are being deceived by a lot of Plato's theologies and a lot of these bogus people's theology that they use to deliver their occult messages to the world, and they have everyone caught up into these practices and they're not aware of it. They think they're enlightened. So when you read about some of Plato's most far-reaching observations in terms of their religious implications, you will see that they are so similar to a lot of the observations and a lot of the philosophies in modern conscious communities. So some of these implications are the following declarations: that the soul is a divine creation. Now that's true. Deceivers always set the foundation on truth. They always use the truth to bring in their lie. If I just tell you the lie straight off the back, you will suspect it. So they have to sugarcoat their lie with the truth. You will see that in a lot of detective cases. The killer may say, hey, I was at the scene, but I didn't do this, or I did do that. Yep, I know I was there, but I didn't do this, or I did do that. And the detective know that the killer have to admit that they was there because we have the evidence that put you at the scene. So no one can deny the obvious. No one can deny the truth. So liars have to go ahead and present the general truth at the foundation of their lie. This is the art of master deception. So what we find in Plato's observations, he say that the soul is a divine creation, which is true. The soul is immortal, which is true. The body and the soul are separate entities, which is false. You are one thing. It's a concept Plato apparently didn't grasp, or a concept that the elite are hiding through this imposter bogus creation called Plato. Because the body and soul are one. I go over this video after video. I won't beat the horse. We're going to keep it moving. Another one of these declarations is that all souls pre-existed in other bodies. This one we can go ahead and check off as ancient truth, even though, again, no one knows what happened when we pass on. It is true that this is an ancient afterlife belief. Our ancestors had a belief in reincarnation, that souls pre-existed in other bodies. So this is true. The last but not least is the one that is corrupting the entire world and lies at the deception of all modern conscious communities. And it is that the soul is perfect, but that perfection is contaminated by having to be encased in the body. So again, here Plato is cursing the human body. He's saying your soul is perfect, but your body is a curse, and your soul is even contaminated because it's in your body. This here creates the kind of humans today that do all type of things to their body, like put millions of tattoos over their body, like with billboards and stuff, plenty of holes and all of this stuff all over your body. Nobody cares about themselves. We curse our bodies. We drug it up, prostitution, and we don't look at our bodies as valuable because of these type of teachings. Plato teach that the soul is perfect. Now the creator created your soul, and the creator created your body as well. Why would one thing be perfect but the other one is a contamination? There has to be an agenda here, and Brother Sanchez is exposing that now. So for all of you guys under the sound of my voice, you know what I do on this channel, and that's expose the spookism so we can get out of this deception, y'all. It's fear that's governing us, and this misinformation is really messing the world up and corrupting our children. We can undo this thing. Knowledge is power. We got to do the groundwork. There's no spaceship that's going to save us. We got to do the tedious work of spreading this knowledge, because the elite get up every day and have their message spread it to your children in these classrooms. And they have this message that Plato is teaching and all of these deceivers is teaching, put out widespread, corrupting the masses more and more every day. There are only few people that are giving the truth like I'm doing, but we have very little support, if any. So some of the reasons people will give you as an excuse for why the body contaminates the soul is that the body and soul are two separate entities. So this is already based on deception or misinformation, but a lot of excuses you will get to support the idea that the body contaminates the soul is that bodies come and go. They are born, then they die, but souls are immortal, and that souls fall into bodies at birth and move into other bodies when the body encasement dies. Everything I'm reading right now is true so far, but I'm going to show you where the deception come in, because this is an excuse to support the idea that the body contaminates the soul. So according to some of Plato's musings, the relationship between a soul and the body it occupies is frequently strained. And in general, souls do not like being in bodies, in part because they are contaminated by them, and in part because they would much rather be free. So your body is not a prison cell like Plato was describing. Plato was, if he even existed, he was living in a society that already based their society off of a foundation of bogus afterlives like Hades. So of course it would be natural for a person who have that kind of foundation to come up with the idea that a soul wouldn't like being in a body, when a body is just another realm or form of existence that a soul chose to occupy and experience life here on earth. And to prove it to you, there are some things, if you haven't done in your life, you are going to do before you transition that are going to touch your soul. So there are things we do in the body, in the flesh, that actually touches our soul. Even according to Plato, the fact that the body can contaminate the soul show that they have an interchangeable connection, which makes them one and the same. The fact that the body can introduce something into the soul shows that it's all one system. So the soul comes and experiences reality through the body, and I get into that in a lot of videos. What I want to point out to you about all of this is basically you create your reality, and it can be a hell or a heaven for you in the flesh. So beliefs like this, what Plato was pushing, it had the agenda attached to it that your soul would rather be away from your body. And this is the same concept of you rather have your riches in heaven. So you see people in the church struggling, their light bill is behind, but the pastor's still milking them out of money, telling them that, listen, you're going to receive your riches in heaven. Your body would much rather be free from this earth. It's the mentality that everyone have, and as a result, the planet is suffering because of us humans who just can't quite get it together, because these type of concepts create a reality that's miles far from the reality that we can really be experiencing. So is reincarnation the goal of the soul? Just like all ancient beliefs we like to accept, we pick and choose what we want to take. But I will tell you that the ancient belief of reincarnation created a society that was far more heavenly and balanced than the one we are in today, based on this YOLO mentality that the whole world has. We see reincarnation every day. In the forest, when a tree dies, one grows in its place. We see reincarnation every day. Children are born, and life is a continuum. So the ancients went by what they perceived in reality. They did not ignore their senses like we do. We have been trained to ignore our senses and ignore reality, go against nature. And since we ignore our senses, we live in a very senseless world. And nothing seemed to quite make sense to us, because all we have is a foundation of deception and lies. So you will see in some modern Hindu religions, and again, modern Hindu religions, they promote beliefs that are compatible with Plato's notion that souls released from dead bodies are reincarnated into new bodies. We know that's a fact, but some of these modern Hinduism beliefs suggest that the cycle is terminated only after much traveled souls achieve perfection. So again, you do what I say and you don't have to come back here. It's the same type of thing we see in all of the world religions, where if you be good, follow the government, be a good citizen, you can go to heaven. So when you read about a lot of Hinduism beliefs, what you must realize is that unlike Judaism, Islam, or Christianity, Hinduism is not one single religion. It's a synthesis of three religious traditions. There is no specific founder or clear time of origin. It is a long-term accumulation of a number of religious views into a commonly accepted system of salvation. I like Hinduism. Out of all world religions, I do resonate a lot with Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, a lot of the real Christianity, not the Creflo Dollar stuff. But because at the root of all of these religions is making a better person in morality, but it gets very evil when you got people who know that, and they know genuinely, naturally, the human want to be good and righteous, and they play on that, and actually on the flip side make us evil, and we aren't even aware of it, because the good that they teach us in these religions is really evil. When we look at the universal whole, at all of the religious wars and the death as a result of these religions, and even just printing all the Bibles and books and the natural resources and trees being torn down just to support these religions, and all the resources that goes into them, and that the people are expected to put into these ideologies that produce nothing for the earth but war, famine, rich pastors, and poor communities. So that's why I have to draw the line. I console with the aim of the average pastor and the average person in the congregation who's innocently trying to better themselves. But the agenda, again, is very hideous. So as we move on, realize that part of learning is learn how to chew the fish and spit out the bones, and not to be so quick to debate and jump to conclusions with anybody's beliefs or perspectives, and try to have some degree of respect to everyone, even if you share different ideologies. So the ultimate goal in Hinduism is to seek release from the cycle of rebirths and attain union with the ultimate reality. This union results in the final release of the soul from the continuous recycling into various physical forms. Again, it's the same Plato belief that supports this same agenda of cursing the body to create a world of control where they get to control your body. So everyone wake up every day and we go to work and do the work of the elite. We do the work of the controllers, and we create the world of the controllers. And these people tell us that our bodies are cursed. You're going to have a better body when you die. So while you're here, use this one for me. And we clap every day on Sunday, and we shout our way to a graveyard with amnesia. So even in this modern Hindu belief, we see that the ultimate goal is to stop rebirth. We see that rebirth is a natural phenomena. Go to a hospital and look at a baby being born, and then read that goal to the baby. People who believe in such a goal must be for abortion as well. If the ultimate goal in your belief system is to stop rebirth, you should work for Planned Parenthood. You should be for abortion. Nature teaches us that life should be abundant. Why is everything on the earth today so anti-life? Why do we want to escape from this place and go somewhere else that we say the same creator who created this place created the place that we're trying to go to, and the creator will accept us there, but he won't accept us here, or she won't accept us here. The creator don't mind us destroying this place because we will be allowed to go to his beautiful place or her beautiful place, as if the mindset that we have here won't exist up there, and you will see polluted streets of gold on them heavenly streets. Trying to get us out of the dumb type thinking. We got to get back to reason and reality. Again, the RE root, reincarnation, revival, resurrection. So when you look at this Hindu belief of one having the goal of escaping the cycle of rebirths and attaining union with the ultimate reality, that ultimate reality is not a single deity. It's something that they call simply the ultimate reality. Now, I speak of the all, or the source. The ultimate reality would be equivalent to that. So in Hindu beliefs, salvation is also a long-term process that involves repeated rebirths. A lot of these Hinduism beliefs, I resonate with them. For example, the ultimate reality is what they call the source or the supreme being. To personify is to limit that source. You take an infinite source, a primordial infinite source, and you personify it into that which it created, which is various expressions of itself. What we see as a result today is that everyone's God look like them, and we argue about which is the true image of God, when in order to see the true image of God, quote unquote God, you would have to be outside of creation, looking at the entire creation, and then you would see the creator. Everything in creation makes up the creator. So you can't draw the creator on a picture and say this is the creator with blue eyes and blonde hair, or with dreadlocks and brown skin, because all of those personifications that you drawn on that paper are different expressions of the source. So we would have to take everything in creation and zoom it down to the point of microscopic projection in order to get a glimpse of what the all would look like. And once that revelation happens, you will find yourself back one with the source, because you have the creator's artist view. So if there were an outside to the creation, which I doubt it, I believe it's an endless continuum. But if there were an outside and you found yourself on the outside of creation, looking at the creation as a speck, you, the observer, will be looking from the standpoint of where would you be existing at, looking at the creation from the outside? That would mean you would be the all. You would be back unified with that supreme source and partaking in that artist's view. So the caption in front of you is just a little bit more of the Hindu afterlife beliefs. It goes into the many lives and the three alternative paths to becoming unified with the ultimate reality. There are three paths: the path of ritual salvation, the upanishadic goal of release from rebirth, also known as path of knowledge, and the final one is the path of devotion. Since people are in different states in their progress towards salvation, everyone is free to select the path most suited to their religious needs. So if you want to go further into Hindu afterlife beliefs and the three different paths that I just mentioned, get in the description links. I created a Google document that will break down to you the rest of this Hindu philosophy as it relates to the three paths of becoming unified with the all. So you can check out that document and it will go ahead and give you a brief wrap up of what that's all about. Once again, appreciate you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate your support. If you want to join me for part 3 of this video, we're going to get into a lot of Christian concepts, because there's still some more concepts concerning afterlife that we want to get into with the Judaism and different Abrahamic religions, Christianity, Judaism, afterlife beliefs. We touched on a few here, but like I said, there is a final part 3 where we will go even deeper and touch on some more and close this thing on out. I also want to encourage you guys to join our family patronage. I really need you guys' support. I'm very passionate about putting a positive message out there and spreading truth and unity and opening eyes with these ancient revelations. So shout out to my patrons, because these are individuals who are moved enough to support what I'm doing monetarily. None of you guys are obligated to donate or give anything to this channel. These videos will always be free. They will always be uploaded every Thursday. I love to do it, which is one of the reasons why I set up a Patreon, so I can have more time to make more and more videos and possibly even start traveling to you guys, different cities and different venues speaking, so I can do more. If it was up to me, I would do this 24/7. I love putting the truth out there. I love making the videos, and I know you guys enjoy them. So if you would like to see more videos, you would like to help us out, help us grow, help us make more videos, give us video ideas for future videos, that's all going to be available to you. To learn more about our family of patrons, just click the card that you see in the top right corner of your screen or visit the description links. With that being said, brothers and sisters, I'm going to let y'all go today. I hope you gain more insight and perspective on the afterlife and understand that we have no fears, that the Most High is in control. So with that being said, my beloved, peace and much love.